what I feel is there are lots of perspectives. In history, you can view it in different perspectives. For example, a war from a winner's perspective and from a loser's perspective is totally different. A victim of probably some atrocities during the war, their perspective would be different from the king who has taken over them, for example. So there are always perspectives. There is never a whole truth. Even life is like that. I also thought that I should present the perspective of Ulupi in the story, what she feels and what she goes through in the entire journey. So that made it easy. If we try to actually try to fit in a perspective of more than one person, it will never be probably true to its the person who is the key character in the whole story. So I have kept it as true as possible to the original epic, but included the perspective of Ulupi. What do we see of Ulupi that makes her so relevant for people, even for people today? It's not just women, it's for everybody. She plays many roles during the Mahabharata: daughter, sister, wife, and she has a brother also who actually does not approve of Arjuna's marriage to her, and that she supports and wants to send Iravan to the war. He does not approve of it at all. So she faces adversity, and how she comes out of it is the story.
Namaste, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of our initiative Sitaism on Center for Indic Studies, organized by Indus University. Today, we will be talking about another very pivotal character in Hinduism and Hindu history. Sita has often been portrayed as a gentle and docile woman, and this particular portrayal has been implied on many other women of our pages in history. This particular initiative is trying to change the narrative on two principal reasons. Firstly, to reintroduce Indian models of inspiration to women and girls of India, to explore their feminine infinitude. Secondly, to explain how Indian history and literature recorded women in more substantial ways than other civilizations could. This provides India its self-styled feminine ideology and Indic feminism, which caters to Indian realities, Indian culture, and Indian society. It rejects hyperautonomy while embracing the contribution of women beyond their womb. Sitaism is this very ideology, the power to live one's own reality, one's own principles, while also being an extremely supportive partner and reaching feats like marriage, parenthood, etc., while also leaving if one's dignity is threatened and being in a society which records that history accurately, neutrally, and still celebrates their historical contribution and still worships them. Today, our speaker Rajani Murlidhar will be delving into Nagas that have held a significant place in Hindu culture, often depicted with human and serpentine features. They are revered in various epics. In this talk, we will delve into their mystical world. Our speaker today has written many stories in Kannada and English. The rich narratives from the Purans inspire her to recreate their stories for adults and children alike. She has successfully contributed to the short story Ulupi in the Indic Women of Substance anthology for Indica called Arya. And I would welcome ma'am with the very first question. How did you become an author, and what is your education background and genre of writing?
Thank you, Ojasi, for inviting me, first of all. It's a pleasure talking to you. Actually, I come from an unusual background for a writer. I am an engineer. So I worked in the industry for more than a decade. And I took a break from my job when I had to raise my two children. So during that period, I spent a lot of time reading to them. And I also found that there was a shortage of Indian books with Indian background. And so for a long time, maybe 5, 6 years, I had the urge that I should find some time to write for them. And when my son was going to turn 10, I wrote something small for his birthday, which he liked very much. So that's how my journey began. I was primarily writing for children when I came across this opportunity with Indica. And as a writer, we should grab every opportunity that we get. So when I was selected, I was pleasantly surprised, and that is how I came to write the story of Ulupi.
Wonderful to know that, ma'am. Especially in the genre of history writing, often the function of writing, more than anything, more than defending one's position or attacking the position of other civilizations that may be pertinent to our historical reality. All of these, in my opinion, are secondary. History is recorded in creative ways only so that we can learn from our mistakes, only so that we can know what truly has happened. So, in your journey of history writing, what has been your purpose?
To be honest, I am not a history student, but what I feel is there are lots of perspectives. In history, is you can view it in different perspectives. For example, a war from a winner's perspective and from a loser's perspective is totally different. A victim of probably some atrocities during the war, their perspective would be different from the king who has taken over them, for example. So there are always perspectives. There is never a whole truth. Even life is like that. So we don't have the whole truth. It's always our perspective of somebody else's. So in that way, I also thought that I should present the perspective of Ulupi in the story, what she feels and what she goes through in the entire journey. So that made it easy. If we try to actually try to fit in a perspective of more than one person, it will never be probably true to its the person who is the key character in the whole story. So I have kept it as true as possible to the original epic, but included the perspective of Ulupi, which may not have been so detailed in the original Mahabharata.
It is so interesting that you talk about perspectives, especially of the winner and the loser, ma'am, because we are celebrating Sita. The way that Ramayana has been written, and the way that, yes, there are very ornate praises of Ram, but so are in the case of the account that is written for Ravan. It is a very neutral perspective when it comes to understanding what the merits of both those men were who were engaged in the war of Dharma. And yes, that challenge within history writing to be able to take up one perspective and deliver it with complete sincerity can often be very challenging. Which exactly brings me to the question, how did you come to write for Indica? While I know that you started writing children books and that's how you landed this opportunity, how has this writing been different? How has it demanded out of you as a writer a very different perspective to write? Because this is more adult centric. This book, Arya, has been more something that has been floating around in the Indic spheres where the intellectual quotient may be much higher.
Yeah, that's right. Um, I actually came, like I told you, it was just an opportunity that came by, and I thought that I can at least try to contribute. So pleasantly, I was selected, and the journey has been really quite challenging because I had not written for adults before that. And but my background has been such way that we have, I mean, everybody in India go through this phase where they listen to stories from Mahabharata and Ramayana in their childhood. So that fascination was what brought me to write for Indica. And during this time, I attended some workshops. They prepared us for the exercise, so it was good. So in the workshops, I could see how to enter the adult world also from my perspective. But I think my background of children's writing helped me keep some innocence in the writing. I mean, not to lecture or give my perspective of what happened, whether Ulupi was really a victim of circumstances. These kind of things I did not explore. I think the idea of story writing is to tell the story. The end point where the user, I mean, the reader comes in and he makes his own interpretation of the story, and that is the best way to present, I feel. So that is what, there's a simple thing when you take that stand, and it makes it much easier to write. You don't introduce your own biases into the story. So that helped. And I have kept the writing also simple, keeping in view that we may have various kinds of readers. And I think sometimes it is not necessarily the language complexity that attracts people. It is more of the simplicity that is presented well that will attract readers. So I would say whether it's adult or children's writing, I pretty much keep it simple. So that way it didn't change so much, but of course we have to keep in mind that for adults the content has to be more elaborate rather than for children. Yeah.
It's very rightfully put, ma'am. I think without further ado, now we can delve into the character of Ulupi and also understanding the mystical world of Nagas.
Yeah, I think my choice for the, I mean, we were given a choice to pick any character. So I chose Ulupi, and you see in this presentation why. I don't have to tell. At the end of the presentation, you'll know why she was such an interesting character in Mahabharata. So let's.
We can start
So
now.
I will. I think talking
Okay.
about Ulupi without talking about Nagas will not make it complete. So I will first introduce you to the world of Nagas, why they're so important in our, not just our culture,
Okay.
throughout human history. So they have been symbols of secrecy, wisdom, and cosmic power throughout human history. This is not only in Hindu culture. So it has. We see now in the following slides that all over the world there are artifacts that were found during archaeological studies which reveal that they were guardians of hidden wisdom, and they connected the material with the metaphysical worlds. Okay. The main ability that is comes time and again is their ability to shed skin, which represents renewal, transformation, and cycle of life and death. So it actually we go back 11,000 years, and to Gobekli Tepe, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, um, which is a Turkey. It's actually a Turkish name. It's a place where all this began. I mean, this is the last. This is the time when they found the first artifacts which contained um, evidence that Naga worship existed, serpent worship, as we call it, existed. The humans were still transitioning from hunter gatherer to agriculture, and at this time, they found the world's first temples, which were megalithic structures, and they contained evidence of Naga worship. So it goes back many, many years, and we'll see in further slides why this culture has started since, I mean, for 11,000 years. We have been seeing this culture emerge, and it's still continuing. Then we come to the neighbor Mesopotamia, where Sumerians worshipped a serpent god called Ningishzida, who was the deity of vegetation, underworld, and sometimes even considered the deity of war. Here we see the first depiction of half human and half snake body, sometimes the reverse also. That is the snake upper half and lower half human, though it's not there in the picture I have shown. So we see this in Mesopotamia also, in Sumerian culture. And here the very famous libation vase of Gudia, which was dedicated to the god that I just spoke about, Zida. Here we see that there is an entwined snake, that is snake, serpents, male and female, which is that represents the duality, sun and the moon, male and the female, the hemispheres of the mind, then the soul, human and divine. So you see that there is a esoteric meaning to this um, serpents. We already see it so far back in history. Then, as we continue, we come to ancient Egypt, where snakes, gods, and goddesses were worshipped, and also there were also enemy snake serpents, like what we have in our own history, like Kalia or Kalinga, whatever they call the snake, which I think Lord Krishna killed during the Kalinga Mardana. So we see similar equivalents in Egypt. Um, Mehen, the protector who wraps the sun god Ra's boat to keep him safe in the when he goes through a night trip and through the underworld. So and then Wadjet, who keeps the pharaoh and the home of Egypt safe, and Apep, also called Apophis, is the enemy god of Ra, who represents chaos. So we see both types of serpents who are worshipped in ancient Egypt, and they appear in tombs, places of worship, and ornaments. So then we move from Egypt to Mexico, um, where the Aztec culture, in the Aztec culture, there's a feathered serpent, is very famous. It's related to wind, Venus, sun merchants, arts, crafts, knowledge, and learning. Quetzalcoatl is called. It's a difficult word. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Um, Then we move to Southeast Asia, where we see Nagas appear in many cultures. I'll speak about India at the end because we have a lot to cover there. So we see Cambodia, where the Khmer temple carvings have Nagas appearing, symbolizing water and fertility. Then Thailand's famous Naga Fireball Festival, which is held along the Mekong River. Uh, the hallmark of this festival is the glowing spears of light, which can be very small and to the size of a for a football. They naturally rise up 100 meters from the water and disappear, and this is what attracts thousands of visitors every year. And then in Indonesia, particularly in Bali, there are ceremonies during temple anniversaries where offerings to Naga deities seeking good harvest and safeguarding them from misfortune are performed. So we see that this Naga worship is all over Southeast Asia. And then we come to ancient India. Of course, there are many rituals and many temples and uh, a lot of information on this. I have concised it to um, some information that will give you an introduction to how Nagas are worshipped in ancient India from a long time. So the primary Nagas called the Ashtanagas were the kings. They are the king serpents. I will talk about them now. I think a lot of stories from the Mahabharata um, um, s- involve these Nagas. And without them, it is quite incomplete. Talking about any scripture is incomplete without a mention of Nagas. Um, in the Ashtanagas, the first and the foremost Naga is Ananta or the Adishesha Naga, who represents the infinite nature of existence and cosmic cycle of creation and dissolution. He also is Lord Vishnu's seat and has 1,000 heads. And we know him as his reincarnations as Lakshmana and Balarama, respectively. In Ramayana, Lakshmana is a reincarnation of Adishesha Naga, and Balarama is a reincarnation in the Mahabharata. Going to the next mystical Naga, Vasuki. Uh, Naga Vasuki is a serpent coiled around Lord Shiva's neck and represents power, devotion, and ability to endure challenges. So we see he is mentioned in the churning of the Mandara mountain. And also, I don't have to tell the story of Mandara mountain, and this is quite popular, churning of the ocean. And the other mention is other where he appears is instance where he appears. He's a bowstring of Lord Shiva's bow during the burning of Tripura. Tarakasura's sons establish an empire and trouble all the devas and all beings on the earth. At that time, Shiva appears with the bow and destroys Tripura with one uh, arrow. So Vasuki plays a role in this um, incident also. Now, Takshaka is again a figure of fear and reverence because his role in Mahabharata involves the Kandava forest. He resides in the Kandava forest, and when Arjuna performs the Kandava Dahana for Agni to consume, he escapes the forest and he is responsible for King Parikshit's demise later as a revenge, which leads to more events. I think this we will see further in the further slides. So he has both sides, destruction and renewal. Then we come to the from to Karkotaka, who is often invoked as a protector against enemies and negative forces. His role comes during King Nala's exile. He once deceives sage Narada in a game of chance, and he's cursed. Uh, and to save himself from the curse, he bites King Nala, who turns into whose form changes, and Karkotaka is released from the curse because of King Nala, who has to remain in disguise. And we know the story of King Nala also, so I'll not go into detail of that. So his role in King Nala's life is very important, and he helps King Nala in transformation, releasing his karma and transform. So these are the four Nagas, and we have uh, Padma, the Naga king, who resides in Patala. He is believed to be on the right side of Vasuki and known for his wisdom and mystical powers. Then Gurika, who has the half moon on his head, is associated with strength and resilience and represents the healing aspect of serpents. So he's worshipped whenever somebody has to do work related to medicine and rejuvenation. Gulika Naga is worshipped. He is believed to be on the left side of Vasuki. And then Mahapadma, he is a Naga who is white in color and has a trident on his hood. He is also one of the Nagarajas and has a prime place among the Nagas. And lastly, Shankapala, who is renowned for his sacred sound and divine knowledge and also communication. So they are the Ashtanagas who are worshipped, and we'll see what festivals they're worshipped in. Other than this, we have Kaliya, who was killed by Lord Krishna. The killing of Kaliya represents overcoming ego and ignorance in our own life. So they have symbolism which is related to our lives. Manasa is the famous goddess, serpent goddess, who is worshipped for protection against snake bites. And lastly, Airavata, who has a shape shifting prowess to elude detection from enemies. So we see that we have several Nagas, and there are many more also. And we also, the Nagas are so important that in astrology, each of the Nagas are assigned that one of the houses in the astrological birth chart. So the 12 Nagas have 12 different houses. And you must have heard of the famous Kala Sarpa dosha. While some say um, it is not coming from ancient texts, some still believe that Kala Sarpa dosha exists. And the dosha calculation is done using the 12 Nagas that are assigned to each of the 12 houses in the horoscope. So they play a role in all the esoteric knowledge also. And then further moving to the festivals associated with Nagas, while there are many, the most auspicious of them all is the Naga Panchami during the auspicious month of Shravana. Shravana Masa is considered a divine month, the month of Lord Shiva. So Naga Panchami being in that month ensures protection, prosperity, and well-being. It's also believed that any ritual that you perform during that month transforms a person. And then I have listed some of the famous temples across India. I think this is a very, very short list. There are many more temples, and devotees who seek healing and knowledge in medicine offer prayers to Gulika, especially during Naga Panchami. And like I mentioned to you, the esoteric significance of Nagas, we see this Kundalini Shakti, which is described as a coiled serpent lying on the base chakra. In the chakras, we have 7 chakras, and the dormant energy is believed to lie in the Muladhara chakra in a placid state. And when we actually want to it's located at the base of the spine. And when we want to raise this Kundalini Shakti, we do meditation and various other practices, and it slowly rises through the 6 chakras and reaches the 7th chakra, which is on the top of the head, which is called the Sahasrara chakra. And this slithering movement of the snake as it reaches the um, Sahasrara chakra is indicative of how the snake moves on the ground also. So it's the same movement. So the 7 chakras in our body control our, not just our health, it also controls our personality, and it also controls our actual reality that we experience in this physical world. So the balance of the 7 chakras is really important for our well-being. And the Kundalini Shakti's awakening also shows us our true power and strength, what we are capable of. So if it is dormant, we are actually very much in the physical world, and as it rises, we can tap into more power and strength from the other chakras. And finally, when we reach the Sahasrara chakra, when we experience true bliss. So this is the esoteric significance of serpents in our own well-being. Yeah. So now, in the previous slide, I mentioned the Naga Airavata, the last one in this particular slide. Um, Here, each of the Nagas have a clan. So Ulupi is from the Airavata clan, where the Nagas are shapeshifters. She was the daughter of King Kauravya from the Airavata clan, and before marrying Arjuna, she was a widow of a Naga who was killed by Garuda in a fight, in a war with Garuda. He dies, and in Adi Parva, Arjuna meets Ulupi, and she actually abducts him to her loka and finally marries him. And through their union, a son is born, Iravan. And here, Iravan is the one who sacrifices himself in Kurukshetra war to actually ensure that Pandava's victory is possible. So here we see that Iravan is a fusion of energies of the human and the Naga. Is very powerful, and he actually undergoes spiritual evolution by participating and sacrificing himself in Kurukshetra war. He is still worshipped today, and his legend lives on in Tamil Nadu. There's a Kuvagam festival in which he is worshipped. So I have just briefly introduced Ulupi in this in my presentation. You will know more if you read the story. So I don't want to reveal everything and spoil it for you. So, uh, what do we see of Ulupi that makes her so relevant for people, even for people today? It's not just women; it's for everybody. She plays many roles during the Mahabharata: daughter, sister, wife, and she has a brother also who actually does not approve of Arjuna's marriage to her, and that she supports and wants to send Iravan to the war. He does not approve of it at all. So she faces adversity, and how she comes out of it is the story. So she has to accept a lot of things because she cannot change them. For example, Arjuna's marriage with her doesn't last more than a couple of days because he has to move on, and she accepts it, and that's something she cannot change. But she doesn't hold any resentment, hatred, or any kind of greed in the situation. And what we see here, which is relevant for everybody, is that how she's able to stay optimistic in a difficult situation and come up with innovative ways to find strength. And she's a very generous character in my view. She even brings up the son of Chitrangada, who is the other wife of Arjuna. So you see that she is really generous, and it shines in the face of adversity. She faces these kinds of challenges in very unique ways, and always having greater good in mind. And she has the overall view of the situation. It's not a long term view, it's not just today she's thinking of. And that is what attracted me to write about her. So I finished my presentation here. And I hope I was able to give you some overview of why I chose Ulupi's character in Mahabharata, from Mahabharata to write.
Thank you very much for that presentation, ma'am. I would just like to ask you that what are some of the characteristic features of Ulupi that make her maybe a little misinterpreted in today's time?
I think the situation that she got herself into, wherein she brought up Chitrangada's son, and she pushed him into war against Arjuna. That came out as not a great, what you can say, depiction of her character for a while. But in the end, she redeems herself by actually telling Arjuna the curse that he was about to be inflicted upon. So she saves him from the curse. So I think this part, when it is revealed, she even is invited to the Ashwamedha Yagna, which happens later. So in the end, it all turns out well, but she puts herself at great risk for Arjuna. But all along, if you see her character, she knows that what is expected of a wife of a great warrior. In those days, they did not think of themselves as just an individual person. It was for the family, for the greater good, and even sometimes have sacrifices for that sake. They made sacrifices for that sake. So I think she's a wonderful character to write. And during writing her story, the death of Iravan, which you see in the story, I think it really took something out of me when I wrote it. It's hard, I think, for a mother. And she knew all along that she's going to push him to death. She knew that he may not return from war. There's always of that possibility, and she knew that the enemies were really strong, and there was very less possibility of him returning back. So I think that is really tough to imagine that and write. It took something. So yeah.
Ma'am, what are some of the characteristics of Ulupi that women of today can learn from. Women of today, you think, might find inspirational. Because these characters of Mahabharata, in fact, most of the women characters in Mahabharata have always challenged the quintessential image of woman in today's society that is highly influenced by Western ideas of what a traditional woman looks like. So, what us as Indians trying to advance towards a society that is more in tandem with our Indic roots, learn from Ulupi.
Yeah, like I said before, it's not just women, it's also men, anybody. I think her positiveness in any situation, that is something that everybody should learn, and also seeing the bigger picture. Sometimes we lack it, and also this individuality to this extent did not exist in those days. I mean, you don't think of only yourself; you think of the entire, not just in case of queens, it is the entire whatever city, state, whatever they govern. So even queens had a responsibility towards the state. So it is always the bigger picture. I think that is what we should see. Is in the bigger picture, is this decision of mine going to do any harm, or is it? And most in most cases, they will have people who oppose it. In Sulupi's case, her brother did not approve of her marrying Arjuna at all. So in that case, she had to live separately from her father and brother in a different palace, but she accepted it. She did not have any anger against Arjuna or her brother. She managed the situation well. I think we come across these kind of situations in everyday life, women especially, because they sort of change families after marriage and these kind of things. And there may be situations, but one thing we must remember when we go through any kind of situation is to not have resentment against anybody, because all of us are somewhat governed by circumstances and our culture that we are brought up in. So what we think may be okay as a woman may not be okay for a person on the other side. It might be your husband or might be some family of your husband. We cannot expect that everybody will understand us, but we of course have to know what is acceptable to bear and not acceptable to bear. That is also, we have to be very clear of that. So in the end, if we agree to disagree in a manner that is uh, not detrimental to the future, with the bigger picture in mind, like Ulupi did, I think that will be good. But it's hard. I know it's hard. From everybody's experiences, we see it is hard. It's always hard. But we should not, first and foremost, we should never treat ourselves as victims. I think that is where we make a mistake. The moment we think we are victims, we tend to make the wrong decisions. So when we are not victims, we think clearly. So being victim is an illusion. We can never be a victim of anything. We can just be a part of the circumstances. But either way, one person considers themselves as victim, the whole situation is ruined. So I think it's very clear in Ulupi's case that she wasn't treating herself as victim of circumstances. So though we see that she is pushed back by her brother, and she has to raise a single child. So that's all tough. It's very tough. So we see how she handles it. It's a great lesson, not just for women, but for everybody. Yeah. So
I'll just wait for the frame to clear. Okay. So, ma'am, another question I wanted to ask is, what do you think the value pillars should be on which Indic feminism should rest upon, or on what women empowerment and the image of feminine divine looks like in India should rest upon?
first and foremost, I think there's so much change happening for women. Firstly, I think maybe 100 years ago, women's role was primarily to raise children and take care of the house. and this was an accepted role, and everybody is comfortable, both men and women, and it continued. I'm not talking of Western world. I think somewhere along the line, Western world had already changed, but I'm just talking of India, like my grandmother's time, maybe. Um, and then slowly things started changing. That there was a need for women to work, and women came into the workforce. And the problem started when they could not divide their attention between both equally, or you could say mm, it became harder. And maybe my mother's generation, it was still okay because they lived in a joint family and this kind of thing. And then moving forward, and when we come to my generation or generations later, people are living independently, raising both families and having a job and being accomplished. I think a lot of pressure on women. I feel that women today is much, much more difficult being independent and all this feminism, giving them expectations of life which they can balance perfectly with family, work, and all kinds of other pressures to look good and to feel good. I think it's too much. Honestly, I think it is too much. So, firstly, women today must reduce their expectations of themselves and from others. I think both will help. Both will definitely help because societal expectations are so high, and if we try to meet them, we will just be killing ourselves. So, we first have to define what we expect of ourselves. Do we expect to balance work and home perfectly? Are we able to do that? So it might be different for different persons. Our energy levels are different, our backgrounds are different, and how we take help from others, it can vary. So first we set our own expectations of ourselves, and we don't set the bar so high that we are sure to fail. I think that is the primary thing. And we stop looking at others and seeing what they are thinking about us. I think we should stop that and relax. I would say that this is the most important thing. I am in my 40s, so I can tell for sure that it's impossible to meet everybody's expectation, and your own is just too much. So, this is the first thing. We lower our bar and we live happily. That should be the most important thing. And we set ourselves reasonable expectations, and we do both whatever work, job and family to a reasonable degree, taking help from people. So, but if you don't want to, and then you have to choose one or the other, which might be hard. So, I think it's all about us setting the bar more than, and we should not complain about society not expecting too much from us. I think it is us who try to meet society's expectations. If we stop, nobody will bother us anymore. I can tell you from experience. We stop thinking about society, society will stop bothering about us also. It's all in our own head. So this is the first thing. And the second thing is when we are married and we have a partner. Again, the question of expecting how much from the partner and these kind of things come. We need to have a good understanding between the two people. The two people have to have a good understanding and be able to manage whatever um, pressures that come in with jobs and children and these kind of things. I think this is the main thing. When we are in our 20s, I think we still can have high bar of expectations and match it also. That's what I feel. But as time goes, it becomes excessively hard. So as I see, as the society progresses, I think all this will come to a balance. People are not able to accept a woman paying less attention to home and also not having a job. Both are difficult for society to accept and even women to accept. They want best of both worlds. So this will change, I think, as we go. That all these expectations will probably moderate itself, and both men and women will probably come into a balance of roles. Right now, it is in flux, and that's why we see this importance of feminism and all these things. But this will also come to a balance. And until it comes to a balance, I think we must take care of ourselves by keeping everything to a reasonable degree. That's what I feel.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your valuable insight on Ulupi as well as Indic feminism and what the imagery of India and its societal values towards women would look like. A very interesting piece of trivia that I would like to leave our viewers with is about the Kuvagam festival that ma'am talked about while talking about Iravan. It happens in the Kottadavar temple, and it is a temple where Kuvagam festival only allows transgenders to enter. So it is a very interesting tradition that scales back to several years ago. And it is also a show of inclusion as well as exclusivity of space for the transgenders across the world, as well as India within the Hindu sphere. Finally, this brings us to the end of the initiative of Sitaism. I would like to leave everyone with the understanding that Paramatma has often been personified as Tripura Sundari, and that often happens because the idea of divine feminine is very refined within our culture and our civilizational values, and everything eventually will come to an understanding of how the synergy between the feminine energy and the masculine energy residing in all of us has to finally harmonize. And this is a lesson that is going to come whether we like it or not, because it is a law of nature, and nature can be a ruthless teacher. After all, Prakriti is a woman too. Thank you very much. I will see you in the next initiative. Namaste.
Nice.